All right. So if you are a part of the Christian community, then you may or may not know who Devon Franklin is. And if you do know, then you would be happy to know the latest news about him, which is that he is now being considered a marriage expert on the hit TV show Married at First Sight. However, there's one missing detail that we are all forgetting, and that is that he's divorced. So we're going to talk about that. Happy summer. It is officially summer vacation here in my house. For those of you guys who are tuning in for the very first time, my name is Selina Almodovar. I am a Christian relationship coach, author, and speaker. And what I do is I help women of faith recreate their love lives through their faith and trust in God. And we are here today to talk about some pretty interesting news as it applies to this gentleman, Devon Franklin, but also as it applies to you. What can you take away with this? The question that we're going to chime in and chat about today is, should you be taking marriage advice, maybe some relationship advice from people who have failed in those relationships? I think it's a very interesting conversation to have. I wanted to bring it your way. And I want to say welcome. Welcome to the show. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to chime in the chats, or if you're watching on Instagram, feel free to chime in on the little question bubble that is below. Be sure to share this live, because maybe you have some other friends who are very interested in learning how to better their relationships in a Christian setting. So go ahead and share. If you're watching from YouTube, be sure to subscribe, because I do this every single Friday, along with give you a brand new relationship faith-based tip video every Monday. So there's a lot of good stuff going on. I am trying to collect myself today because, like I said, it is the very first day of summer vacation. So we're trying to really reset the energy in our home now that my oldest son is home. A lot of energy. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What's the weather like? Are we doing activities? Are we just going to sit here and do nothing? All that jazz. Not to mention, I did a fact check, and I have roughly 100 days of summer vacation with 3 small children. So please, please, please keep me in your prayers. Let's get right into this topic, okay? So for those of you guys who do not know who Devon Franklin is, he is a very popular Christian among Hollywood circles. He is very involved in the film industry. He is a TV producer. He is an author. I actually have one of his books called The Wait. Okay. The Wait is a powerful practice for finding the love of your life and the life you love. He co-wrote this with his then wife, Megan Good. Why is this so important right now? Well, among this book, he wrote other books. Live is the newest one, and then he also has one called "It Takes a Woman," which I think is coming out, or maybe it just came out through Audible. So I don't know the details of his most latest work, but if you are unfamiliar with his work on the big screen or the small screen, you know, he's done shows such as Kingdom Business. So if you've heard of that show, he's a part of that. If you've ever had the holiday, you know, warm fuzzies and you wanted to watch a animated show around Christmas season, The Star, he produced that movie. Breakthrough, Miracles from Heaven, these are all projects that he was heavily involved in, if not led. And a lot of people in Hollywood knows him because of his faith. He not only that, but he's a preacher. He is a very high in demand preacher. He is a spiritual success coach. I mean, this man does a lot of things. And on top of those things, back all the way back in June of 2012, he married a child star actress, Megan Good. Now, Megan Good has done a lot of things in her own time. She is an actress, TV, and she starred in many movies. She is very widely known for her roles in a lot of the movie stuff. She was in My Cousin Skeeter. I can't think of any of her movies off the top of my head. So if you are watching this and you're a Megan Good fan, like, please, by all means, put your stuff out there. But she is also pretty popular among TV and and movies. And what is so interesting about the couple of Devon Franklin and Megan Good is that they decided to wait. They took the purity culture, they adapted it, they embraced it as their own, and they got married. Now, this couple never had children. That's not my business to, interpret why or what happened there, but or if anything happened there. But recently, very recently in December 2021, so it was like not even a year ago, they decided to get divorced. And it was very sad because this was like a very good couple. They would travel all over the country, if not the world, to preach about their relationship, to preach about having faith and having God at the center of their relationship. A lot of people would judge Megan for being Megan, for not being modest enough, not being submissive enough, not being the Christian wife that she should have been, which what does that even mean? Really, at the end of the day, we can break that down in a whole nother video. But a lot of people gave her a lot of heat because, again, Devon Franklin is a good boy. He's a preacher man. He is a man of God. And so a lot of people were always speculating, like, how is this man of God married to this woman who isn't really showing that she is godly in her own outer appearance and outer, behavior? And eventually, I think all of that pressure of Megan and the church, if you will, like, let's be honest, it was the church, really condemning her and really judging her. I think that had a very, very, very big inspiration and one of the biggest reasons why they decided to get divorced. But in their they did one of those shared post things on Instagram where they both had the same picture and they both kind of had the same publicity approved paragraph announcing their split. They both mentioned that they prayed about the decision. Okay. I know there's a lot of people who are married and who have these relationships in the church, and a lot of churchgoers see that and they're like, you are a beacon of light for the next generation, for couples who are trying to make it. They put them on this pedestal and they put them in this pressured position of like, well, you're now a role model and you should be doing everything by the book because now people are watching you. People who want to get married are trying to do things like you. Like, they start to idolize them in a sense, and it's not very healthy. It's not very godly, and it puts people who are actually humans trying this marriage out, trying this relationship out, just like everyone else. It puts them at a very pressured state because we all have issues. We all have baggage. There might be some trauma mixed in there. I know Megan Good, before she married Devon Franklin, she experienced a very bad relationship before this. So I'm sure some of that carried into it. And no matter what, no matter if you are a godly couple, a Christian couple, or a Christ-centered couple, all three, if you will, there's going to be some trials. There's going to be some tribulations. There's going to be some disagreements, and how you handle those things behind closed doors is really going to impact the longevity of that relationship. Well, it turns out that these people decided to call it quits, but what Devon said in his most recent post, let me see if I can pull it up on Instagram here. What Devon showed in his most latest post is that, let's see, can I move this? Can I move this? Can I move this? No, I can't move the screen. They decided to make him a marriage expert before he got divorced. So when he decided to do this job and he decided to come on the show Married at First Sight, he was still married to his wife. So everything seemed to check out. He did it because he knew, like, my experience marrying Megan Good, my experience coming from a spiritual faith background, I think I have a lot to offer to the couples of this show. If you're unfamiliar with Married at First Sight, which PS, if you know the Married at First Sight that I'm talking about, please let me know. Hey, how are you? Then you know that this is a very popular reality TV show. I want to say it's in season 14. Is that what I have in my notes? It said season 14. So for 14 years, longer than he has been married, this show has been going on. It has produced some successful ratings. And so people are very into this. You know what I mean? And so what ends up happening in this TV show is that you have two completely different strangers. I don't know if they complete a questionnaire. I don't know if they go through an interview process, but somewhere in the beginning stages of the Married at First Sight, they get paired with their spouse, okay? And they agree to marry a complete stranger on the day of. Okay, so you are marrying a stranger on the day of, and then the show begins, with these people as a couple. And then apparently that there are these marriage experts that kind of help them along the way to help them realize, how can you make this marriage work? Is it worth having, or are you going to let it go? And so Devon was signed on to be one of the experts, but what ended up happening was he got divorced in the process. Okay, so what he talked about, I didn't write here. I didn't take a picture of the caption that he wrote, but I want to read the caption to you because I think this is very important. And I'll stop in between because I want to really break down what's going on here. For people who are watching me on, let's see if I can pull it up here. Let's see if I can pull up the shared screen. Let's see. Okay. I don't think I can share my screen here. Maybe I can. No, I can't do it today. Next week I will for YouTube. I'm trying to do it, but I can't. But I'll go ahead and I'll read the caption here. What he says is that moment of truth. Okay, so he's kind of placing himself in a position where he wants to be honest. He wants to be very open. He says, last year, Married at First Sight, while he was still married, invited me to come on the show. I agreed to do it, and then the divorce hit. So he is hitting this head on. He is like, listen, I know that the very first thing people are going to say when they read this headline is that I'm divorced and I'm a marriage expert, and it doesn't line up. It's not making sense. So he says, I agreed to do it, and the divorce hit. They came to me and said it didn't matter to them because they still felt like I could help their couples. I was going to tell them no because of the shame and the voice in my head that said, you're a failure. How can you help anybody save their marriage when yours didn't work out? I'm going to stop right there because a lot of people who are Christians who get married and then they feel like they have to be stuck in these marriages because they feel like divorce is the ultimate failure. And it's like, oh, God is against divorce. Like, it's a sin to divorce. But isn't it also a sin to break the vows that you made at the marriage thing, to not love and honor and cherish your spouse for sickness and health and richer and poorer? Like, don't you go through some issues in your marriage where you are all of a sudden like being offensive towards your spouse or disrespectful towards your spouse, or you start to be selfish towards your spouse, and rather than to get divorced, you stay stuck in that relationship, making it more and more toxic? Like, isn't that just as bad? I'm just going to say that because a lot of people feel like, no, I can't get divorced because what is the church going to think? And what is God going to think? And I'm like, sister girl, God sees what you're doing and he knows your heart, and you don't have love for this dude anymore. Or he sees that there's abuse going on, or he sees that there was adultery that was occurring. Like, there's a lot of things that can give you clearance to peacefully exit that situation. You know what I mean? So anyways, again, people stay in these marriages and it's really bad because of exactly what Devon Franklin said. He said in their head, which is really the enemy, in their head, you're a failure. How can you help anybody save their marriage when yours didn't work out? Okay. And that is the problem that we see a lot in Christian communities today, is that they feel like just because they weren't the long-standing marriage couple for 20, 30, 50 years, all of a sudden it has discredited their experience of being married. It discredits their faith in marriage and in relationships, and therefore they cannot be looked upon as a person who has wisdom, who has discernment, and who has faith to help in another relationship's perspective. You know what I mean? So let's keep reading here. It's that's all his voice. And then the voice in my head also had me thinking about what would people say? Really, are we really talking about people? Because people don't really see divorce as a bad thing. A lot of people make a lot of divorces happen because they just feel like it didn't work out. I broke up. It's done. I'm going to move on. Right. I think he used the quotations people there because he's really talking about the church. He's really talking about the people of faith, the people who honor and uphold marriage as being a sacred thing. Okay. Would people, he used it again, would people approve or disapprove? Okay. And I think a lot of people would disapprove his decision to share his voice and his experience in this particular setting. But then check this. And then I had to ask myself, is this how I'm going to live the rest of my life? In fear of what people say, or who are people anyways? So I went back to the Lifetime team and I told them, yes, I'll still come. I refuse to live in fear or shame. I'm not mad at him on that. And guess what? When I went to do the show, something powerful happened. God, of course, always shows up. And everything I've been through, I was able to draw upon to help a couple successfully sort through their issues. You'll have to watch to find out. A lot of times that voice in our head is our worst enemy. It tries to talk us out of what God is trying to talk us into. This is Devon Franklin's comment underneath the statement of his last post. I was trying to get through this life perfect and without failure. We're going to talk about that in a second. Now I'm just living to get through it truthfully. And if what I've learned about love and relationships can help someone, then I'm here for it, says Mr. Devon Franklin. So let's go ahead and break this down. Okay. Should you be accepting advice? Should you be accepting feedback from people who have come from failed relationships? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Yes, you should. Why should you accept feedback from failed relationships? Because number one, I've had failed relationships. I feel like everyone has had failed relationships at some point or another, right? Now, it's what happens after the failed relationship that credits you as being someone worthy of having wisdom and discernment and worth going to as a mentor or as someone seeking advice. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you have a marriage, if you're a person of faith and you have a marriage, if you're a person of faith and you have a really good relationship, and then all of a sudden it falls through, it falls short for whatever reason you chose to break up. Devon said that him and Megan Good prayed about their decision to divorce before it ever occurred. So even though they were a Christ-centered marriage, they made it a Christ-centered decision to part ways and to do their own thing. Okay. You can't tell a couple what God said and what God didn't say. You can't tell a couple if God's mad or God is angry, or if they're approving and giving them the peace and the grace to move forward on their decision, because you're not God. You're not there. You're not in the situation. You're not the fly on the wall to tell them, oh, you can't do that. And oh, that's not right. Right. But here's the difference is that after you choose to separate, after you choose to have your divorce, after you choose to have your breakup, you're still a person of faith. You're still leaning on God. But what you decide to do after that, are you going to choose to live in fear, just like Devon Franklin pointed out? Are you going to choose to live in fear of like, oh, I'm so ashamed. Because I made this choice, I'm now blanketed in shame. I'm now blanketed in fear that people are going to look at me differently, that people are going to see me as being damaged goods, or as being like a vow breaker, or being a person who does not depend on faith to restore marriage. marriages. Who's to say that the marriage that you were in was the thing that was actually breaking you, and the divorce that you finally stepped out in is the thing that you're going to use to lean on God to restore you? Like, we don't know. We don't know what it is. We don't know what could happen, but we do know that God is able, and God does not hold anything against us as soon as we ask for the forgiveness. As soon as he forgives us of our choices, whether that's a bad choice or a sin or turning away from him and then coming back, we know that he does not keep a record of wrongs. And so I believe that even in those bad choices, even in those bad seasons, God wants to use that stuff for good. But how can you ever allow God to use that stuff for good if you're constantly going to be living in this fear and shame of, oh, I made this choice and I'm now a bad Christian. I'm now a discredited Christian because I chose to make this decision that is not popular in the Christian community, that being divorce, that being the breakup, you know what I mean? And so Devon had a real moment. He was at first saying, I am now discredited. I can't share that. But at the end of the day, he said, no, you know what? I'm going to turn this into good, because he was married for 9 years, guys. 9 years is a very long time. I've been married for 9 years. I got married in 2013. We are now approaching year 10 next year. And let me tell you, a lot of stuff happened in those 9 years. We had to experience parents dying. We had to experience miscarriages. We had to experience moving into houses, renovation houses. We had to experience making new friends, losing old friends. We've experienced a lot of stuff. And that's just the outer stuff. Like, we're not even talking about living together, overcoming anger issues, strengthening communication issues. Like, all of that stuff can happen within a marriage. And you have to call on God to make it work, especially if you're a person of faith. And so where does God come to play in those 9 years? Because he's gonna, there was one time when Kyle and I, we were just hitting walls. We were just like, this is not working. Like, we are not on the same page. Like, we weren't on the same page for weeks. And finally we were like, we need to just wake up earlier. It doesn't matter how much sleep we get. It doesn't matter what we're feeling, but we need to be obedient and just wake up earlier, and we need to pray about this. And we're not going to stop this ritual. We're not going to stop waking up early to pray until the things are resolved. And sure enough, by inviting God into the center, things slowly but surely began to resolve themselves. Kyle and I are in one of the best seasons of our life, marriage-wise, because we continue to lean on God. So you can't sit here and tell me that through his 9 years of marriage to Megan Good, whether Megan Good is present or not, you can't sit here and tell me that he doesn't have some nuggets of wisdom, some experiences that he has gone through that he could be able to share and use to perhaps benefit someone else. And who's to say that his marriage was a failure because it never lasted the 20, 40, 50, 70 years that it should have been, as according to our standards? What if God wanted to use the marriage to bless these other marriages coming to this show? Like, what do you say that God's not going to use their marriage for something greater, or they're going to use their story to continue on and to produce something? We don't even know if these people were couples of faith, and maybe because of his influence, now all of a sudden they're like, I need God in my marriage, and I never knew that, and I never felt that. And it wasn't until he came to tell me these things that I was now inspired to move in accordance with God's will, and now that's changing our marriage completely. We're going to take a small commercial break. What is it? What is it, William?
Can you open up the fruit stuff with the juice?
The fruit stuff with the juice?
Yeah.
The fruit cup?
Yeah.
No, you can have that at lunchtime.
Why?
Because I said.
But Peanut had one.
William, no. Hashtag summer vacation. I'm going to use this little hashtag to say, please feel free to share this live with people who are watching also on Instagram. If you're on If you are on YouTube, please feel free to share this with your community. I have some questions here. I want to go ahead and comment them here on YouTube. It says, you got to love yourself first. Otherwise, both people lose love and then they aren't happy, but also mentally learning. Thank you for calling me dope. That's so awesome. And thank you for watching, for being a part of this as well. So those are the things that I want to say for you guys who are out there right now, since we kind of had this commercial break because, kids, am I right? I want to ask you, do you think after going through a divorce or after going through a relationship, do you think these people, you would be willing to listen to their advice, be willing to listen to their lessons to help strengthen your own marriage or your own relationship? Give me a yes, I would in the comments, or give me a no, I would not in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's open this up for discussion. What do you think you would do in that situation? And while you're doing that, I'm going to take a swig of water here. And what I also want to say, as you guys are sharing your comments, is that, I lost it. Let me see if I can get it back. What was I going to say? It was so good. I should have wrote it down. What was I going to say? I forgot. It lost me. I want to say thank you guys for being on here and for saying nice things to me and all that jazz. But this is what I was going to say. Here's my moment of truth. Can I get personal? Can I get real with you for a second? My moment of truth is that I was a terrible girlfriend. Back in my 20s, I was a very terrible girlfriend. I had the worst failed relationships. And quite honestly, I think that is one of the reasons why people from my past do not give me the credit of being a relationship coach today, because they knew who I was in the past and they knew that I made a lot of bad choices. Now, what kind of bad choices that I actually make in my past? In my past, I was a crazy girlfriend. I'm not going to lie. I was a crazy Puerto Rican girlfriend. I yelled a lot. I threw temper tantrums all the time. I was very selfish. And I used to try to play the wifey role to try to attract the guy, to make them say, look, I'm a good cook. Look, I keep a good house. Look, I could take care of you. But then when it actually came to real life issues, Selina, there's a conflict, let's confront it. And then I would get upset, or I'd blow up, or disrespectful, just dumb stuff that people go through in immature relationship settings. I feel like we've all been there. I feel like we have all experienced it at some point or another. When you don't know yourself, then you become more dependent on your partner, right? And when that person needs space, or when that person is no longer interested in you, because it's like they're looking at a mirror and they're not getting fed intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, then a relationship can tend to fall apart. Well, that is what happened to me. I had no idea who I was. I was very insecure, and so I had relationships that were very bad. Does that mean that now I am unfit to share with you my love life lessons? No, on the contrary. I think if you were to hear man, this stuff happened, but this is how I fixed it, or if moving forward, I can say if Devon can be listen, this happened to me in my personal life. I got divorced, but moving forward, this is what I'm going to do differently. Isn't that a piece of information that you would want to hear to help enhance your marriage, or to help enhance your relationship? Moving forward, this is what I would do differently, or looking back, this is what I should have done, or this is what I should have said, or, now that I think about it at the beginning stages, this is what I would have looked out for. People can use those bad trials, those bad relationships. People can use a failed marriage for their good moving forward. And I feel like if you're going to keep that inside of you, then how are you really going to use that for God's glory? That's why I go out there and share all of my baggage and share all of my business with you guys, because if I could just save one person from making a terrible mistake the way I made back in my early days of dating, then it's all worth it, right? So maybe that's where Devon was coming from. Maybe he's listen, this is what happened in my marriage, and it was really sad and it wasn't pretty, and I'm not proud of it. But if I can share what happened to me in my humility, if I could share that with someone else, then maybe it would prevent them from making the same mistake. Maybe I couldn't prevent divorce in my life, but if I could be a beacon of light under God's provision, under God's grace, and say, I want to share this with you because it could possibly help you strengthen your path, then isn't that worth it in the end? Like, that's why we need to be very open and honest about our stories. That's why we need to be open and honest about hearing things. I think a lot of times, if I can I say this without people like booing me and like closing out of the live? But I feel like as Christians in the church, just because you're a Christian, a lot of people expect you to be perfect, and you're not. You're never going to be. Just because I accepted to live my love life in a way where God leads it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to have a perfect relationship moving forward. And it definitely doesn't mean that I get to tell you that your relationship is not perfect or that you have failed. Like, who says you failed? Like, who says this is the end of Devon's journey? You know, I don't think it is. And yes, God created divorce because his people wanted it. Like, it's all there in scripture, you guys. It is all there in scripture. He doesn't like it. He doesn't desire it. But there's a lot of things that happen in this world. There's a lot of things that happen in the heart of people that he does not like. And that is not stopping him from loving us. And that is not stopping him from giving us a way to come back to him. I think this is the way you would come back to God. If you go through a bad relationship, if you go through a bad marriage and things happen, rather than to feel the shame, rather than to live in the fear, rather than to feel what people, and we're going to use the quotation marks that Devon put there, rather than to have people start telling you how to live your life or how you should feel about yourself, like, let's cut that all out and let's just be like, God, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm at. This is my feelings. These are my thoughts. And God's going to be like, now use it. Use that to glorify me. Use this to glorify me, because at the end of the day, that's what we need to do. So when you're in these bad relationships, or when you're in this marriage that you just feel like, I've tried everything and it's not working, and now you start to feel guilty because you're like, God doesn't like it. Yeah, but God doesn't like you unhappy either. You know what I mean? Like, God doesn't want you to live in a place where your vows are being broken on a daily basis. Period. God wants you to use your experiences for glory. He wants you to use your heart for good. And if you're just going to stay stuck in those situations, then it's really hard for that. So, in my opinion, is Devon Franklin an expert in marriage? So, I know this term expert a lot because a lot of people have wanted to call me, are you a dating expert? Are you a relationship expert? Well, define expert per se. It's when you spend, is it 100,000 hours studying one specific topic? Can you break 100,000 hours of Devon studying the topic of marriage? Maybe he has. I mean, he's written a couple books about it. I'm sure he's preached on it. I'm sure he's gone to prayer throughout 9 years, talking about it. Who's to say that he's not an expert in marriage just because he had a failed marriage? I think there's a lot of stuff there that he could say, especially being in a Hollywood setting, number one, especially being in the limelight where people are constantly judging and looking at him and telling him how to live his life. Number two, especially because he is a man of God. There are not a lot of Christian couples out there in Hollywood. There's not a lot of Christian couples in the limelight who can say that he's been there and he's learned some things. And now moving forward, he has a whole totally new perspective that he can bring to the table of what he could do different, or what he should have done different, or what he's going to do differently moving forward in the next place. And let's not forget about the fact that you have preachers, you have mighty men of God who did make terrible mistakes in their past. And so, okay, so you mean to tell me that a preacher who committed adultery and chose to stay with their wife is better than a man of God who divorced his wife and is now like using that for good. Like, to me, it's sin is sin is sin is sin. Sin is sin is sin. But as long as you're using it for good, then God's going to honor that. You know what I mean? So, does anyone have any questions before we kind of wrap this up? If anyone has any questions. And one last thing, this book, The Wait, I know he wrote this with his ex-wife, and I know that he's no longer married to her, but it still has really, really, really good wisdom in how to stay pure when you're starting a relationship with somebody, and how to honor God, and why waiting is a good idea in preparing you for marriage. And I mean, they talk about other things. They talk about business, they talk about your health, but more so like the really real, this is still a good book. So just because they're divorced doesn't mean that you got to discredit what he has already dropped, the knowledge he has already dropped, or the knowledge that he's going to be dropping in TV shows such as Married First Sight and other relationships. And I mean, quite honestly, the show itself, Married at First Sight, like, these people are going in blind. Like, they need all the help they can get. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to need a lot of help and assistance. And yeah, I think Devon is a good choice, regardless of his relationship status. I think God is going to turn his story for good, for his glory, and for the people who are just like, I can't listen to someone who is divorced. I can't listen to somebody, I can't listen to single moms. I can't listen to divorced men. I can't listen to people who have sinned, who have messed up, who have made mistakes in their life. For those people, please, sisters, and whoever else is watching, sisters and brothers of Christ, please pray for those people, because what I'm hearing is not you making a good decision on whether or not that's good judgment. What I'm hearing is an ego and a pride of you saying, I'm better than you, and I refuse to listen to you. Like, if you're not even going to listen to them, I think it's an ego and a pride issue. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it doesn't matter what walk you came from. God will use anybody to speak to you. God will use any story, whether it had a happy ending or a bad ending, whether it had a failed ending. God will use anything to speak to you. He will use anything to use that for you to help with your situation. God will use a donkey, y'all. A donkey. If God will use a talking donkey to get through to you, I'm pretty sure he will get through to you through this. I remember one time I had a single mother with multiple baby daddies talk to me about to how to enhance my intimacy life, my marriage bed with my husband. And a lot of people were like, why are you choosing to listen to this person? Like, why would she have anything good to say to you? And my response was, because God can use anybody. And I don't believe in the person as the messenger. I'm trusting in God using his words, And so the same can be said for Devon Franklin. The same can be said to anybody in your circle, because let's make this personal now. Anybody in your circle, I think you have to approach it with discernment. If anybody tries to give you advice and you're kind of side-eyeing them of like, but weren't you divorced like 3 times? Or, but don't you have like 2 baby daddies? And like, really, you're going to tell me about my single life, but you're over here, like all types of messed up over here. Like, use discernment. I'm not sitting here telling you to receive all the information that you receive that people want to share in regards to you and your personal love life. But what I am saying is that God can use anyone, and please be discerning about it. Please take what they say to your prayer closet and say, God, is this of you? Give me the confirmation. God, is this something that you're trying to tell me? Like, let me know, prompt me, Holy Spirit. You know what I mean? And the other thing that I want to leave you with, the last lesson, is that if you feel like you failed in a relationship setting and that discredits your story, your lessons, and God's presence in that thing, then that is an enemy. You have to rebuke it. God wants you to use your story for good. So I am encouraging you today on this Friday to jot down your stories, share them openly, because you never know how they're going to minister to someone else. You never know how they're going to help someone in their situation, and you never know what God can do through you. Amen. So that is my lesson for today. That is my spiel for today. I might tune into Married at First Sight in this next season. I really want to see what Devon Franklin has to say, because that could be very interesting. Like I said, Hollywood is not filled with Christian eyes and ears and hearts. Okay, so it will be very interesting to see his perspective on this very popular show and where he leads people in that show. He did say that he was able to minister to a couple through his captions. So we'll see what they say. Okay, so well, my bad. So that's what I'm going to say today, guys. Please be sure to share this information to people. Hold on, let me go ahead and hide this. There we go. Please be sure to share this if it meant something to you. Obviously, that is my time, because I got a time bomb kicking out on my door, and summer vacation is here. So we'll see how these Friday lives go. If there is another time that works better for you, let me know, because I might have to turn this into an evening thing when the kids are like asleep. You know what I mean? Because y'all might have to see me get out of character with these knocks, and I don't know how I feel about that, showing y'all that on live. I don't know, but thank you guys for tuning in, for watching. Thank you for everybody here: Model Citizen, Nara Noir, the real Christina Cole, Kathy Vegarosa. Who else was here? Thank you guys. Mike, what's up, Mike Head? Thank you for coming. All bricks for Jack Wash car, Jack Wash. Thank you. A-Turn, I think that's how you say it, A-Turn. Thank you for people who are watching me live on YouTube. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to share. And I like to keep having these conversations, because this is stuff that's happening in real time. And so I love talking about it and how it applies to us as Christian believers who are trying to build our best love lives for ourselves. So I will be doing this every single Friday. Again, the time might change. We'll see. And you guys have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your holiday weekend if you're watching from the US and celebrating Memorial Day. And I will talk to you guys later. For those of you guys who are on Instagram, or who are on Facebook or YouTube and Instagram, don't forget I will have a new video coming your way on Monday. I have one last I live in the UK, but I love your content. Keep sharing. Thank you. Nara Noir. Is that how you say it? Hey, tell me, so glad I found your bed. Is this a good time? Is this a good time to do lives over in the UK? Because if it's not, I might have to, like I said, delay the time to something in the afternoon or the evening, our time here. But if this is good, then hey, if you're going to show up, I will show up with you, and we could have tea, and we could talk about the tea of, the pop culture relationships here. So I'm so glad for that. Thank you so much for sharing. Oh, that made my day. That made all the knocking in the background kind of worth it. You know what I mean? So thank you guys so much. And I'm going to leave out of here. I think I need to tend to some kids. I think that's my cue. So have a wonderful day. I will look to you guys again soon, and stay blessed. Oh, it's coming up. Okay, to 4 p.m. Okay, so that's good. So yeah, I would just have a little more boundaries in place, and we'll see each other again next Friday, same time. All right, talk to you later. Bye, guys.